have one more speaker. We'll just wait for a second. Well, this is a big studio that we are in. Please. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What a pleasure to see all of you here. I remember years ago at the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum with my friend sitting over there, Zadia. We were working very hard on bringing more attention to gender equity. I remember the discussion then was always in small rooms, not like the hall here today. So obviously, we have come a long way and a long and successful way. So today, I'm very honored to be the moderator for this session, Enterprising Women in Asia. My name is Tian Wei. I'm a moderator and host of World Insight on CGT and China Global Television Network. But today, I'm very honored to be invited by the WEF as a moderator for this panel. Our topic today, as you know, is Enterprising Women in Asia. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the economy in the Asia-Pacific region, you all know it is the driving force of the global growth. Meanwhile, a growing number of women entrepreneurs are growing in this region. In fact, Asian women are reshaping the business landscape, and Asia is more than half of the world's most successful women entrepreneurs, according to some latest surveys. But with both challenges and opportunities coming from geopolitics, technology, global economic landscapes, and many other factors, how are women entrepreneurs and business women are shaping and coping with the realities? And what inspirations can they bring to us? Well, I can't answer that question. But these women sitting on the stage today could help us understand better what can be the answers. So my great honor to introduce from here, I will go with the order given to me. Ante, who is the CEO of Greater China PepsiCo Inc. Good to see you, Anne. And Sabine Fatima Haq, co-founder and executive director of Dr. Hers. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Why not? Zhao Yan, president and the general manager of Bloomage Biotechnology Corporation Limited. Good to see you. 高兴您来，谢谢您，来自我们华西生物啊。Last but certainly not least, Ning Yixin, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Center for Research, Advisory and Technology. Good to see you. So I want to start by asking a general question. Do you want to be called business leaders or women business leaders? 我想问一个特别简单的问题，你们想被称为
Would you like to be addressed as the entrepreneur or business leader or woman business leader? Actually, there is no such thing as gender, so far as this concerned.
What about for you? Let's do a survey here.
Sure.
对，
Same answer, and I actually believe that the day when we actually can remove the qualifier, that's the day where we actually have true gender equality.
Well said. What about for you?
Well, I feel that, let me just say this. Have we ever said that, in school, have we ever said this is a girl student or boy student? We never. So the day when entrepreneurs are being called entrepreneurs and not being labeled as female or male, that's when we are really successful, and there's no more need for such session at the WEF Forum.
I see. What about for you, Ms. Hak?
Same thing. Obviously, there's merit in creating forums and networks to bring more women, but at the end of the day, we have to go back in and integrate with all other entrepreneurs. So I'm an entrepreneur.
That's very interesting. What about from the audience? If I could just, ask you, do you think we need to put a women in front of entrepreneurs, or it's okay? We would rather do the other way around, just call them business women, just call them business leaders. Okay, if you want to say women business leaders or only women business leaders, you go with A. But if you say business leaders, you go with B. Let's just do one survey. If you go with A, women business leaders, whenever you see a woman who are in a business, you want to call them women business leaders, raise your hand. No, wow, that's very interesting. What about B, business leaders? Wow, I think even though titles are only titles, but sometimes it reflects how we think today. Well said. Having said that though, let's go directly into the real issues here. Now, with these woven of factors, many challenges, I think this year's summer doubles has helped us to find some path forward. But still, what does that mean for your business? A woman, but also, most importantly, a business leader. 请。
我觉得现在
Well, one of the challenges is innovation. We have to be innovative to deal with the challenge. And also, you have to have a very strong market insight. So with innovation, with market insight, can you be adapted to these changes and deal with the challenge? And also, as a business, you also have to undertake your corporate social responsibilities. You have to understand the mega trend in which we operate. Could we do that? Only by doing that could we move forward. For instance, we have to understand the mega changes that is taking place. Could we move forward? Otherwise, by sticking to the traditional approach, we cannot move ahead. So what are your innovative way? Well, our innovative approach as a business to deal with the challenge, you have to have this insight. You have to lead the business, by being innovative. Could you be a bit more specific? I know many of your stories, but could you please share one of your stories? Let me give you an example. I'm engaged in this biotechnology arena. In the first decade, we tried to survive, but so far, for the bloomage, first of all, we did this transformation in 2019. Initially, we were B2B, and now it's a B2C company. Otherwise, if we stick to this B2B, then I don't think we would have this what we are now. And also, we have this multi-branding, at the C and to focus on this skin health. That's why we are successful. I'm sure, many of the Chinese consumers have used our products. So, okay. So you mean you have to be very flexible, and also you have to be innovative from B2B to B2C. And also your technology has to improve as well. For instance, the original fermentation, now you have to use this biotechnology. You only use 3 days instead of 3 years, as was the case in the past. Of course, as a business leader, you were under a lot of pressure, in making decisions. So you have to look at all these conditions before you make a decision, and also Okay, so we'll come back. Mr.
Challenges mean for you?
Yeah,
You're from the corporate world.
absolutely, and also our leaders at PepsiCo. I think at this day and age, we're living with two levels of challenges, one at the micro level and also at the macro level. On the micro level, obviously, how do corporations continue to stay resilient, which we have been for the past 3 years with the pandemic, and going forward as the consumer demand, as the workforce demand, our employees, they also have shifting needs. How do we stay current? How do we stay relevant? And continue to prop growth, continue to drive innovation and creativity. That's the challenge at the micro level. Certainly at the macro level, we this afternoon is interesting. We have so many panels and sharing at the various zones here at the forum. It's about climate change. It is about how do we actually build, sustainability in our society, the positive impact, resilience in our food system, and at PepsiCo, we being a major player and contributor to the food system globally, we are also confronting those challenges in order to future-proof our operating system that would have a positive impact on society. So both at the micro level as well as the macro level, all these would require entrepreneurship. And really just kudos to the World Economic Forum to put entrepreneurship at the center of this entire event. We are actually, really nurturing entrepreneurship as a culture and mindset, as a capability, as well as an operating model internally and externally with our partners. Happy to elaborate on these later on during our discussion, but for us, we see those challenges, micro and macro, and then entrepreneurship is really a key central solution as we think about confronting them.
As a leader coming from one half of the sky, as they say, I guess all these factors, when you're saying macro and micro, also falls into your basket in different ways. I would assume differently compared to your male counterparts from time to time. So maybe you can also illustrate some of that for us right now.
Yeah, no, I think the awareness, how it gets manifested is slightly differently, not necessarily because of a fundamental gender difference, but there are certain female qualities. I see a lot of, female colleagues sitting here. I'm sure that you agree with me. Female qualities does play up to building a different set of empathies with the environment that is around us. Our employees, our teams, our consumers, the environment. We have a slightly different sense of awareness, and also the way that we reflect on these issues, and also that we embark on the solutions addressing them. I do see the tacit difference. They're all good but different approaches.
Interesting. Yixin, you've been working on your area for quite some time, social entrepreneur in a way. So tell me more about how leadership, especially enterprising business leadership, now comes in from one half of the sky, as they say.
Maybe allow me to share a bit of my background. Over the years, I spent 12 years as a wage earner, as a professional, spanning from joining family business to different think tanks and business organizations. And 6.5 years ago, I started 2 companies, and I founded accidentally a not-for-profit focusing on disaster relief. 3 organizations that I run today have done a lot of work over the last 3 years of COVID, where most people around the world have been hibernating for 3 years, but my team and myself, we have worked non-stop for 3 years. And I have to say that over the last 3 years, although the situation seems to be very difficult for many people, there's so much challenges across all levels, from people, families, societies, technologies, even the whole supply chain. But I feel that when myself and my team, who are being made up of mostly female, I feel that we managed to brave through a lot of situations like very easily. When people ask, how did you guys do it? Like, for example, one main characteristic or key skills that female have, but maybe being underplayed by ourselves, is that we are very good at multitasking. And maybe that is something that most men cannot do. If you think about your domestic partner at home, if you ask him to do the dishes, you ask him to go and throw the rubbish, they'll be like, wait, I'll do this first. And I think this is just how men and women are different fundamentally.
They will learn.
They will learn, but it takes time for them to learn. So something that comes so naturally to us help us innovate at the same time. And if I say this in Chinese, it's like 创业容易，守业很难. And therefore,
So in Chinese, we say it's easy to start a business, but it's very difficult to have lasting success.
whatever that needs to be done, because we have to continue to pay wages for people to continue to put food on the table. So we do whatever, and with female, we have no ego, I feel, that we don't have to take her off the face. The 面子 part that maybe more men have, we don't have to take care of that, the ego part of it. So if we needed to seek for help, or if we need to ask for something from our counterpart or our friends, we will just easily do it, and hey, it's easy. People help you if you ask for it. And to me, that is the core fundamental differences that men and women have, that have helped my team and my entire sector that I work with brave through the COVID period very well.
Yixin, you make everything sound so easy.
I just want people to
Well,
feel
I just have
relaxed.
that special quality. I just seek for help. And it just works. I'm sure there's more complexity and nuance than what you have just described. That's why we go into details about some of these nuances. Technology. Ms. Hak, I go to you about that. You are working in the area of both data and health. So you are bringing new technologies together with the healthcare sector. So how does that work when you are working as a business leader? And also, how is your gender can be a plus, while at the same time can be also a learning curve for you?
Okay, so I can tell you a little bit about my business. I run a social enterprise in Pakistan, and it's called Doctors. And when I moved to Pakistan in 2011, I realized that medical schools were graduating 85% women, but only 25% of those women were going on to practice medicine. It didn't make any sense to me, especially in a country where we lack access to healthcare. So, and my background, and maybe we'll get into that, I come from online learning and I worked in corporate. So, for me, I was trying to put this and this together. And so I created a company where we provide, where we bring women healthcare providers back to the workforce, and we deliver healthcare using technology, right? So obviously technology is what we're using to disrupt and to deliver healthcare. Your part of your question, I'm sorry, was?
How is this, in a way, you are trying to fit into the situation, especially with the new technology?
With the new technology.
Education and other.
Well, for us, technology has been an enabler. Not only have we brought back qualified female doctors and nurses and we've connected them, we've started working in rural areas as well. For example, we're in 3,000 villages right now. And we've taken women who were, they've not gone to school, they've not gone through formal education, and we've given them a tablet. We've trained them on practical skills on delivering healthcare. We've trained them on running story circles in their communities. We've trained them on soft skills. And now they're able to connect their villages, their communities to our doctors, therapists, pharmacists. So we are using technology to connect communities and create livelihood opportunities. So we're delivering healthcare, and now these women now have access to education, healthcare, and opportunities.
Good to know. But do you see in your area more women, for example, in Pakistan, are coming in? Because traditionally believe STEM subjects, for example, there are fewer women or students, for example, in universities than male students.
So for us,
how does that work in your country?
For us, it was opposite. I mean, Pakistan's a country where, as I'm saying, 4 out of 5 graduates are women. And then I was asking, why aren't they working?
Right.
So one of the issues that we have in our country, and for medicine, it's called Dr. Bahu. And translated, it means doctor bride. So there were a lot of women wanting their sons to marry female doctors, but they didn't want them to practice medicine. So in our country, we actually have female students are excellent students. And we need to have them stay and practice. I'm talking about medicine here. Otherwise, we're going to, the government has thought about limiting entry of female students, and we don't want to do that. Then we're going to promote mediocre male doctors coming out. So we need to base it on merit. But yes, for us, I was talking about medicine. In other areas, there is definitely a gap.
Asia is a region that is rich in traditions. Many of these traditions are certainly we need to be proud of, but some of these traditions also needs to be changed and adjusted to the realities today. So maybe on the tradition part, I also come to Ms. Zhao's support. 刚才我们谈到了技术。
Just now we talked about technology, mostly digital technology. How digital technology helps to transform local communities. Your company specialized in biotechnology. China used to be a very traditional society. Decades ago, we had this saying, women holding half of the sky. With economic and social transformation, there have been some changes in the social status, economic status of women. So about technology, about corporate integration of technology, about the involvement of women in high-tech companies, what's your perspective? The overall trend around the world is to have more women involved in high-tech development. Many women are well-trained or educated for technology. And just now we talked about special characteristics of women, such as high resilience, high tolerance, and so on. Reflecting upon the 3 years of pandemic, we have been advocating women leadership, and women's resilience has stood out in the 3 years of battle against the pandemic. Meanwhile, women have strong compassion and empathy. This is also a plus for women. Technology has helped to narrow gender gap. In the past, people talked a lot about the physical difference between males and females, but things are different now thanks to technology empowerment. We have a contracting share of physical input. Instead, we count more on the learning capability and the insight. So this is a great opportunity for women. They can fully leverage on their resilience to be deeply involved in business development and leadership. How about your company? My company is a high-tech business. We have over 800 engineers and researchers, and women account for more than 3/5 of our staff. In particular, we have many doctors and postdoctor scientists because they are eager to learn and they remain curious in the learning curve. A few days ago, Tsinghua University organized over 30 women entrepreneurs to visit our research center in Beijing. And the visitors were really impressed. They were impressed that I had so many female engineers and scientists on site. I replied, women are more committed to research. They are very committed and engaged. But males sometimes are more interested in making quick money. This is a big difference. Of course, we also want to strike a gender balance. But as mentioned by the friend from Pakistan, females are gaining more share in higher education.
trying to bring all of you on board, okay? But you talk about, women going to the area of technologies and many things, but technologies are developing so fast, not only in biotechnology, but especially artificial intelligence. And we see the necessity of reskilling, and it's so crucial. Yet, the society has not established a very well structured reskilling platform, generally speaking. So, Isian, to you, and then I go to Ms. What about that? How are you and your colleagues are coping with this reality? For example, in your little ecosystem, what are you trying to do in terms of reskilling?
Well, for our team over the last 3 years, for example, let me talk about the not-for-profit as an example. None of us have been through COVID or such pandemic at a global scale in our lifetime, at least for this generation of people. We have not learned about how to mobilize volunteers to get people out to go for vaccination. Nobody have got the experience to manage and source for vaccines and get enough foreign labor to be vaccinated. Nobody have done logistics, to move logistics for PPEs across countries, across oceans, if we are not in logistics business. All these are new things that we learn without anybody teaching us. But I also agree with what Zhao Zong has shared, is that I think the resilience that female have, the spirit of learning and the no ego protection spirit that we have will actually move us and encourage us to reach new heights without us realizing that we are doing something very special. Because to us it is, yeah, we need to get this sorted, we need to do things, and we need to do that. And therefore we just find ways, we scramble, sometimes, but we get there together as a team. I think that is my own experience and my own realization.
Yeah. I can see Yixin every time when she's trying to answer my question, he's just saying, I'm just gifted. It's just natural. Everything happens like
No,
that.
I have to give thanks to my team and the people around me. Maybe they are really the angels being sent from above.
All right. Putting jokes aside, what do you see are some of the points that business leaders these days really need to do to reskilling their employees and including themselves, women here particularly?
Me, right?
Yixin, yes,
Okay.
please. And then Anne, please.
Although governments, for example, Malaysia, every year at the annual budget, we allocate a certain percentage of national budget to reskill people. All sorts of incentive programs, whether at the corporate level or directly from government to people, with all sorts of programming. But again, it takes a lot from the individual ourselves to have the wants and the need to learn. Governments can give all sorts of incentive, companies can provide the platform, but if you yourself do not have the capacity, the motivation to upskill and be complacent, nothing's going to happen.
You're coming from Singapore.
I'm coming from Malaysia.
Malaysia.
Yes.
Excuse me.
And
You're coming from Malaysia.
Yes, and therefore, lifelong learning remains very important. Lifelong learning, open learning, yes, as a platform is available, as at the policy level is available, but for Asia at least, I feel that lifelong learning may not be a culture yet at my part of the world. Not in China for sure, looking at the rise of technology and all that, but I also believe that with assisted learning, with the rise of education technology, it makes reskilling much more easier compared to pre-COVID.
As long as we are looking for it.
As long as you're looking for it, you're willing to learn, it's there.
Yeah. And?
Sure. No, I think great question. Reskilling, retooling, it's happening every day in the organization. Every corner we turn, we realize that even for the most traditional things that we do it in a slightly different way these days, right? How do we reach consumer? How do we inspire the demand? How do we build our brands? How do we manufacture our product, distribute, so on and so forth? It's all being done differently. So at our organization, there are two components components of reskilling. One is about reskilling the teams and the individual, and the other one is reskilling the organization collectively as a whole, and I'll talk about this. The individuals need to be reskilled through a series of mindsets. How do we actually set the new vision, the new capability of the company, and then have it get manifested in the way that we do things with institutionalized tools that could be deployed at scale that would actually facilitate changes in the way that we work.
So how, for example?
Well, I'll just give you one example, digitization, huge trend, and we talked about a lot of this these days. AI is just, a more advanced version of digitization, but, we've been digitizing the entire company. The way, very simply, the way how we reach consumer is already being done differently. In the past, people talk about, hey, you put up an ad on TV, you basically, talk about the brand, you select your cohort, and then you talk about the messages. These days, it is no longer a mass media. It is one-to-one marketing. It is about understanding who are specific cohorts of your products, of your brand. You reach them at the channel that you reach them, where they have the right density. You use big data. You use programmatic buy to reach these consumers. And then you measure the effectiveness of these investments, and then you provide the lift.
I would love to see it as all rosy picture, but let me just throw in a casual example, quote unquote. Artificial intelligence. Now, if you think about the easy jobs, quote unquote, that will be replaced, administrators, secretaries, even my job, as reporters, there are a huge proportion of reporters in many Asian countries are women. So actually, we are talking about quite some challenge when it comes to reskilling. It's not just about uplifting the skills that they had, it's about a total change. Meanwhile, you also have other issues like generational differences.
Absolutely.
The other day in the train station, I was looking at a lady, of course, a little bit more senior in age than all of us, trying to figure out how to do the scan and buy the fried chicken. And it takes her much longer time than all the others. I'm really afraid that she's going to miss her train. Of course, we offer to help. But this is just one of those examples. Women, even about women, the topic itself, there are so many different categories that really has to be catered to in terms of how to reskill and take care of their needs. And very briefly, before I go to Ms. Huck.
Can I add something here?
Okay,
obviously,
sure.
There's the gender gap, and we need to ensure that there's more participation of women in AI and digital transformation. I think there's another part of AI that we need to look at, is that the female perspective is included in AI, right? I'll give a non-AI example. When COVID happened, PPE was developed very quickly by men, right? But most of the healthcare providers on the front line were women. And the PPE didn't work for women. Women were reinfected 2 or 3 times the rate that men were with that PPE. In healthcare, again, last year there was 80 drugs that were approved in the US for women, in healthcare, but only 2 were approved for women. So when we come back to technology and we look at AI, we need to make sure that the female perspective is embedded in AI. That means that women have to be a part of the development, the design, data is so important, and we need to be aware to identify gender bias in AI and be able to understand how to mitigate those issues. I
Great
just wanted
point
to add that
there.
in.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Women have to improve their capacity, to do this capacity building on constant basis. In my company, and whenever there is a new technology coming out, we have to reorganize, to provide new trainings. And now we are advocating China, giving birth to the second, third child. But of course, for that, some employers are worried about recruiting women. But in my company, your mission is to improve the life quality and so that we could live longer and healthy way. So women, have to be a good example. And it's not that because they have to give birth to second, third child, then they have to lose their jobs. So now with this ChatGPT coming out, and also different software coming out, so we should use them to raise the capacity of the women. So even they are burdened with this additional workload, then thanks to the empowerment from AI, they will be able to deal with this additional workload, so that they are not going to lose jobs. Of course, they cannot just have to so that they don't have to worry about losing jobs because of the birth responsibilities. For men, of course, they have to feel their corporate social responsibility. But for women, they also have to do the same on top of their domestic responsibility. So, men and women, they have different responsibilities at home. As a mom, they have to fulfill unique responsibilities, but in society, they do not make a distinction between men and women. So, for the gender parity, women also have to undertake their responsibility in the workplace on top of the domestic responsibility. Okay, so let's come back to this issue, the social role and family role of women. So as women, they have to undertake these two responsibilities.
The question earlier around the reskilling.
Yeah.
We don't see there's necessarily a gender bias about reskilling. However, in this process of reskilling or upskilling, there is a specific female employee needs that we need to cater to because of employees, female associates tend to be less vocal about their needs. So how do we actually build that safety net to ensure that we nurture, we listen to the needs, and then we provide a platform for them to voice, and also we provide the right tools and platforms. And certainly I agree with the comments made earlier on about the work environment, the work arrangement. How do we provide flexibility so that in the process of reskilling and upskilling, they could be able to balance the personal, the family, as well as the professional needs. Now, going back to your second question around pardon me?
Briefly about social and also family roles.
Yeah, absolutely. So going to the point about social needs, I think what we are seeing is that in this process, we also need to encourage our female associates to be not only looking at the negatives or the constraints that they have, but also amplifying the advantages, the unique advantages being a female leader would have. And I think some of the earlier comments about, hey, having the insight into consumer, having the empathy to, your staff, your team, and your associates. Those type of unique skills, being a little bit more teamwork oriented, being more reflective, having the resilience, at times of challenges.
Right.
Those are very, very important skills that female associates and female leaders have. And then providing the encouragement and building up what we call the career ladder so that they can move up, that would actually play to these types of advantages as they transition. Those are very important qualities that we need to be cognizant of. We're very, very proud.
There are different directions of the things that you talk about. Let me just handle them one by one.
Sure.
So let's continue earlier our talk about whether women are contributing or have the access to contribute to both the technology part and also the application part of artificial intelligence. According to the latest global gender report, gender gap report that the World Economic Forum put out, women remain still significantly underrepresented in the STEM workforce. Women proportionate 29.2%, less than 30% of all STEM workers, compared with almost half of total employment across the non-STEM occupations. So there is a reality of difference there. It's not that we can just brush it off and say, oh, maybe it's not. Maybe our body temperature did not tell us it's different, but in reality, on the number, it is very different. So I want to follow up on that, Yi-Hsin, if you can, contributing about the artificial intelligence, just use it as an example. How can there be more access of contribution for women in both developing the technologies and also in the applications of the technologies, particularly being aware of the gender equity? And of course for men as well, who are doing these technologies, what actually needs to be done given your track record? Because you see everything is just so easy. So I'm sure you have some talking points too. Please.
Well, I agree with what you shared earlier about when technology companies develop AI or a new technology, it is very important to have the women perspective to be incorporated at the development level. Similar to public policies, we always talk about gender mainstreaming, gender mainstreaming in terms of budget. Yeah, it is the same. I feel that if we have enough women to be at the decision-making level to begin with, then at the developmental level of any technology and any solution, the women and the female perspective will be considered, and it will not be an afterthought. I think that is the underlying fundamental, that if we can solve that first, it's like many things can be overcome, and we don't have to really pick it up and say, you have not done this, and you should have done that. But something that I would like to address in this room, and I've been trying to hold back, is that this session, we should be talking to the men, but looking at the percentage of, male and female in this room, I feel that we are talking to ourselves.
Well, I do see some percentage
but thank you to all our male colleagues who are here to support this session for whatever reason that you are here. We really hope that you can bring this message out of this conference hall and share it with the rest of your male counterparts who actually sit on the boardroom. I think that will be the more important conversation that we should have, because then the perception issue that we have, the discrimination or the imaginative discrimination that we have, or whatever the glass ceiling that, something that I don't believe that actually exists, still do exist in many parts of the world.
Yeah, I hope they're all watching this live stream on the internet. But Anne, please,
No,
briefly.
I could not agree more. I think we need disproportionate support from men in order to make this a true equality. And sometimes hard target helps. At our company, we actually put a hard target. By 2025, PepsiCo making a commitment that 50% of all the managerial levels need to be women. So women hold up half the sky. Literally, it needs to be 50%. We are already 44% 2 years ago. We're already 44, and in Greater China, we're 57. So that's the type of a number that we need to task ourselves in order to hit. If you don't measure it, you don't get it. So I couldn't agree more. And I think as organizations, we have the responsibility, and we need to deliver against our commitment in order to do that.
Sabine?
Yeah, so I agree with what you've said. And I'm going to go back to your STEM question, because we do have that gap, and it does exist, right? And I'm also a mother, and I have 2 boys in their 20s, and I have a daughter who's 11. So when she was born, we were very conscious in making sure that she had access to technology and engineering toys and all of these things. But I'm seeing that girls her age especially, their confidence starts to go down, And so I've been speaking to a lot of educators and other people to find out where is this coming from. So number one, there is bias in the educational system still, right? It does still exist. Maybe it's the textbooks. Maybe the textbooks have examples that relate more to boys. Maybe it uses sports or something that relates more to boys. Maybe there's not representation of females in those examples. Maybe teachers are giving more attention to male students. So as educators and parents, we need to start very young to understand where are these issues coming from.
And
now,
it's certainly not just coming from schools, it's also coming from society.
From society. Now also, again, we will have differences where we look in Asia, but access to resources. So in Pakistan, for example, a girl and a woman will not have access to phones the same as males, like men and boys will. They won't have access to technology and laptops the same. So those are two very concrete examples of that, how that exists. And then the third thing is representation. Representation is still very important. Yes, we have days of the year where we celebrate women in technology and girls in science, but for a girl to see it, she has to see it to believe it, she has to see it to be it. So we need to continue to put out those stories of males and women, both girls and boys, for girls to really be able to thrive in STEM.
I'm glad that we are doing this right now, right? Yan, what about for you? 您呢？您的认为？
确实，我觉得就是。
I resonate with my fellow panelists. So, from primary school education, we should work to eradicate gender bias. It's assumed that girls are more sensational and girls are made for non-STEM majors. If we have such a mindset, girls will have less opportunity to study high technology. My company is in the high-tech bioscience sector. Actually, I see little gender difference in intelligence and engineering literacy. So the environment of growth is most important. We should create an empowering environment so as to fully unleash the potential of all the girls and the boys so that they will freely select the subjects and career path that they are most interested in. By doing so, women's perspective can also be integrated into our research programs, models, and so on. For example, our OS operation systems are mostly developed by male engineers, and they are not so friendly to female users. To have genuine equality, we will totally neglect gender difference in education or business development. We have a few more minutes, but I have one more question for you. Just now, we talked about the role of women in business, in society, and in families. So please give us some comments on the work-life balance of women in this regard.
Sorry.
Can you just repeat that?
Oh, there's some echoes, right? Yeah. About the professional and also the social roles of women. Because we are usually being asked, how do you balance between your professional career and your family life as women entrepreneurs or women business leaders? What about for you? What do you see these roles are, and how is there a balance that we need to take, or what about for the other half of the sky as well? Very briefly, before we go to our
Sure.
audience
So I think
question.
when we look at women who are in careers, whether it's in corporate or women entrepreneurs, they have the burden of balancing their family and their life. They have social, cultural issues. I think something I want to add in here, we've always had the issue of childcare and taking care of that, but added to that is caregiving responsibilities for elderly parents now, and this is becoming increasingly important. And I think this is something that we are coming up with so many solutions for childcare for our children, but we need to actually look at solutions for elderly as well, because I think Asian culture really takes pride in taking care of our parents We don't put our parents in group homes and residential homes. We take care of our family, and this is becoming increasingly difficult, and it's harder for women than men. So I think we need to come up with solutions, not only that help us take care of family members elderly, but then also coming up with solutions that address the stress that caregivers face, because a lot of women face burnout from caregiving as well, and they're trying to balance that with their businesses and their work. So,
especially in Asia, where many societies are still observing filial piety, which many believe is a wonderful tradition for the societies here in this region. And for you?
Well, very quickly, I would like to take on the government perspective and what governments can do. I think the role of public policy become very important here. For example, ensuring that childcare is very accessible, is very affordable, can actually be very encouraging for especially young mothers to come back to work instead of quitting the job for 10 years while waiting for the kids to grow up and go to school. I think those are small actions that can be easily done as long as the government is willing. And of course, corporate sectors, well, again, it has to come with mandatory legislation to ensure that maternity leave is at least 3 months to encourage female to not only focus on their careers, but also not forgetting that they may also want to be mothers. And other than that, it will be the entire ecosystem and supporting role that the entire society will have to take on, not only from family or your own spouse, but the entire stakeholders, your colleagues, your friends, your families, and your entire social safety network that will come together to help raise the child and families together. I think those are really important.
Yes, indeed. Devils are also in the details, right?
We'll
Please,
just
Anne.
add two things. One is to have the safety net, the flexibility to support. They will have a different pace to career. So how do we actually ensure that they're not missing out because that they actually opt for a different pace, providing that the childcare or the family support. Encourage the men associates to share the responsibility as well. We provide most of the times, maternity leave. How about paternity leave? Right. So how do we encourage male to also share the proportional responsibility? And I say the last one is be cognizant of these situations and these needs. And a lot of times just have the dialogue, because a lot of women, what we realize is that without necessarily speaking up, they actually opt out because of these trade-offs. So how do we actually have that dialogue with the female associates to say that, hey, going back to the flexibility and then the safety net, you don't have to opt out and you can still have a very successful career.
Communication, quality communication, whether in one family or in a society, extremely important. And 张律师。
对，因为我呢是
I agree. We stressed that actually in Korea we have no little distinction between males and females, but for family life there's always some gender difference. As a mother, I'm assumed to take more responsibility for child caring, but we need to have a peaceful mindset. Inner peace is very important. Otherwise, we will be overburdened with anxiety. We will be squeezed between career development and family life. As mentioned, resilience is a very important quality of women. If we can have a good balance between work, life, we can also set good examples for our children. There are some research suggesting that children under 3 years old can also perceive what's going on around them, and this will leave a very deep legacy for the remainder of their life. So mothers should set very positive examples for their children. For my children, especially for my daughters, I want to highlight the need to be kind to be compassionate and empathetic. And I will also stress the qualification of continuous learning. My daughter has just come to age, and I believe I can also take the positive momentum from workplace back to family. That's why, as I mentioned, for the new mothers, I want to give special support so that they will have inner peace to better deal with pressure and anxiety. Thank you for your input. Some of you give very theoretical observations. Others are focused on day-to-day examples. Now I want to give the floor to the audience.
About many of the issues we discussed, feel free, raise your hand. We welcome questions from both sides of the aisle, both gender. And by the way, whatever we are saying here, it's not about men versus women. It's about all of us work in partnership. It's so crucial. So I'll have this one, 1, 2, 3, and in the back, anyone? Also over there. Okay. So 我们先把所有的问题都问出来。
Okay, let's collect all the questions, and then we will answer all these questions.
This is Connie representing Global Shaper, Shanghai Hub. My question for the panel is that I was looking at the chart from WEF on gender gap report, and it was very interesting to see a sharp declining once women reach director level, and to make the last mile to VP and C-suite. I'm wondering, as the business leader in the forefront, what is your insight? What is stopping them for closing that last mile, and how can we, together, men and women, helping them?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. By the way, I want to honor both the Shapers and the YGLs, young global leaders here. Any of you here? Yeah. See, this is the future, right? So let's go to that one.
Yeah, hello, my name is Rana Dajani. I'm from Jordan. I'm a social innovator from the Schwab Foundation. And I want your comments to suggest being a disruptor. We're disruptors, that's what we do, we negotiate reality. So I want to suggest a paradigm shift on how we can restructure society. We know that research has shown that the first 5 years of every child is the most important in brain development, social development, and personality. And the best people to really help the child thrive are the parents. Yeah. And our whole life is about bringing up the next generation. So my suggestion is, why doesn't society restructure itself where the parents, when they have a baby, a child, they don't have to work, and their prime goal is taking care of that child, because they're better than a daycare or a nanny, because they're the ones who are going to take care of best.
Okay.
And then the society changes the workforce so that they can enter back into the workforce later and continue their trajectory of work, especially men, maybe they'll go in, but especially for women, to have an opportunities to which is part of that reskilling, to keep on going even after they're 40.
I see you're doing a social experiment case study for all of us. Thank you so much for that suggestion. We're going to come back to some of that brilliant ideas. The gentleman over here, 来，这位男士，对 Thank you.
I'll try and be quick. So as we went through the pandemic, there was
What's your name? We want to honor you.
My name is Projal. I run a software company. I live in Singapore.
You're from Singapore. Okay.
So as we went through the pandemic, there was quite a bit of debate as to whether remote work is actually helpful for working mothers or not. And so it seems like we'll go into a world that will remain hybrid forever. Do you think that is beneficial to working mothers or actually detrimental to working mothers?
I actually did not catch your words. Can you repeat it just in very briefly?
Yeah, whether remote and hybrid work is actually beneficial or detrimental to closing the gender gap, because I think there's arguments on both sides.
Yeah. Any other question? There's one question at the back, and maybe that gentleman too. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jody Wu. I'm CEO of Off Grid Box. One of the current projects I'm working on is how to get more women in the energy sector. And as I've talked to other female leaders, especially those who studied engineering, when we look at the civil engineering works, the renewable energy installations, it requires a lot of hard work. For getting women in the workspace, that means it's 9 months where women probably shouldn't go to the field. And when you talk to business leaders, it doesn't make any business sense to put them in the workforce. What are your thoughts on that in terms of how do we change the workplace in that sector?
Thank you very much. Sector specific. Appreciate it. Last question coming from this gentleman on the second line of this place. And by the way, I think I know him. The Swiss ambassador to China. Good to see you, Mr. Ambassador.
Hello, hello.
I guess you're representing the diplomatic community here?
Thank you. I was just going to ask a question, and I'm representing Switzerland professionally, but this is a question which comes from authentic interest, because I was wanted to address the other slide that has been presented to us during the whole discussion. And I am from Europe, and I see that actually the gender gap in Europe is 130 years short to East Asia. The gender gap is by far the largest in East Asia, and I think that's where we are. So I would be curious to hear from the panelists how they interpret that.
Thank you very much. Well, I guess we have a number of questions. Let me just quickly go through them so that you can answer with brevity. Last mile issue, how to do that, and also paradigm shift, some of the latest practices, whether they are usable or not. Meanwhile, what about some social experiments? Would they work? And regional differences, maybe indicating cultural differences. We don't know. We are leading to your answer. So let's go with last mile very quickly. Very quickly, please.
I think it's a combination of a lot of factors. The glass ceiling does exist, but it's improving. I think people tend to, promote and then include the people that they find alike to themselves. So when you have like a historical factor of male-dominated C-suite and boardrooms, there is that tendency. But it is indeed improving. But then that needs to be done intentionally. So what we have done is actually to have, we talked about actually setting target for ourselves, and also actually providing a lot of those tools, trainings, development programs. And therefore, just the last piece is, if you look at the latest, one of the Fortune piece that was done a while ago of the top 500 Fortune 500 company CEOs, 46 are women, so it's still a disproportionate small number, but about 10% of them come from PepsiCo.
Okay.
So there is practices that can be done.
Thank you. About last mile, anyone also have input? Okay.
I used to be a vice president at Thomson Reuters, and I was working, and this is before when I was in corporate, but there were very few women that were role models for me at that point. And I was trying to, on one hand, I was a mother and a daughter-in-law and a wife, and then I would go to work and I would become very masculine when I was at work. So this is a long time back, things have changed. But I know for me, it was a struggle because I could not find role models. And a lot of young girls that I speak to, in Pakistan at least, they tell me, we want to find women in corporate who are also still married or having kids or successful in this area and this area of their life. So again, this is an old debate, but I think the role models is really important to have.
Absolutely.
Can I have a very short input on this? In many countries, there's this 30% female at the boardroom target, like the hard target that you talk about. Certain times, corporate sector also have that 30% at the C-suite level. But if I look at things from the other side of the horizon, is that the moment we have to put a hard target and continue to keep the hard target there, are we saying that we will only fill 30% of capable women at those seats because there are only 3 out of 10 reserved for women? So if the society cannot move on from the 30% target, women will never move on. For example, in Malaysia, we achieved the 30% a couple of years ago at the boardroom and the C-suite level. But why are there still more male at the senior management level compared to female? Of course, there are many reasons to it. One is they prefer to go back to family for a couple of years. Secondly is that, do we have enough women who will help another younger female to grow and to prosper? I think those are the questions that sometimes we also have to ask ourselves and not just put the blame on the entire system.
And I
Very
also,
well said. Also, let's go to another question. We have to address all the questions. I know every one question we could have a 1 hour real good discussion, isn't it? We need this. We need this World Economic Forum. Let's go to the one about cultural differences, because we are talking about Asian enterprising women. Is there a cultural difference, as Ms. Ambassador also asked about the, the STEM students and related issues? 赵女士可能在这里可以给我们简单分析一下，但是我们简单。
So, Madam Zhao, please be brief. In Europe, since the Renaissance time in Europe, and since the Industrial Revolution, they have been getting on this fight much earlier than Asia. So in Asia, there's still many traditions that are standing in the way of women. And most of the Asian countries are developing countries.
Any other explanation? Discovery? No? Okay. Maybe we do it with another rounds of discussion in the future. Also about the paradigm shift.
还有教育。
还有教育，对。
Education.
Paradigm shift. Somebody give a case study, some asking whether the current one is working or not about paradigm shift. 是不是真正有一个所谓的 paradigm shift？ 整个的模式都在发生变化，是吗？
Are we witnessing this change of the paradigm shift? Yes. With the advancement of technology, as that gentleman said, we could choose to work remotely at home. This past 3-year pandemic has changed the way we work and live, also our paradigm shift.
Practices will continue to stay. We see it's going to be hybrid. We don't think that the face-to-face can be completely replaced. But then, the flexibility where people need to hand back, attend to the family, absolutely by all means. And you see a lot of companies are actually institutionalizing that policy.
Social experiments like mentioned by that wonderful lady over there, it sounds like a great idea. But I guess it takes years to become ripe, to show it to the rest of the society, isn't it? Sabine, do you have anything to add?
I wanted to add a point to 2 points. One, that in Asia, the gap is wider.
Yeah.
And of course, it takes into consideration healthcare and economic opportunities, and there's multiple levels in that report. I was in Canada recently, and I saw a report that during COVID, more Asian women left than non-Asian women's, and that was something that I haven't read more about that, but I'm interested to find out, is it our cultural, is it the family expectations, what is it that not only in Asia, but women who are in the diaspora or living outside of Asia, why did they also feel that they had to quit work during COVID more than non-Asians? So I'm curious about that. I've just thrown another question, sorry, but it's something to think about, I think.
Absolutely. I think there are a lot of things to think about, isn't it? There are a lot of things that we know that need to be improved, but there are also a lot of things that we do not know the reasons behind. And actually, we need to nail down these reasons before we can really clearly address them with concrete actions. But once again, I am encouraged by this very quickly, the exchanges going on the stage and the inspiring comments and questions coming from our audience. This panel is not here to provide all the solutions, but we are also here as a humble student just like all of you, so that we can make differences in the near future. So once again, I want to thank you, our panelists, and also for the men and the women sitting here as the audience today. Thank you. 谢谢大家。